The Nari Shakti Show by Aparna is envisioned to be a powerful platform to amplify women's voices. We present to you raw stories of real women with remarkable resilience that redefine strength in everyday life. From entrepreneurs to artisans, homemakers to change makers, we cover it all because inspiration comes in so many different forms. Our aspiration is to nurture a supportive community where women feel seen, heard, and valued. And we also invite men into this journey because equality isn't a race, it's men and women side by side. In today's episode, I'm in conversation with the dynamic and number cruncher, Jermina Menon, who's led marketing for giants like Reliance Retail, Virtuous Retail, Mantri Square, and now the Bhartiya Group. During COVID, she also launched her own consultancy, Novitech. Her journey spans across entrepreneurship, mentorship, and championing women led brands. Germina's insights are not just knowledge infused, but deeply inspiring. A very, very warm welcome to you, Germina. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be here today.
Thank you so much, Aparna. Always a pleasure to meet you and talk to you.
Likewise, likewise. I want to start out with you sharing your thoughts on, where we are today. Before the show, you were talking about when you started out, there was very less support as a woman. So just tell a little bit of, where you started off and where you are today.
So, I actually had a very different and I would say an extremely open upbringing where our parents kind of trusted us, allowed us to do our part. So, I would feel the odd one out because right from school, I had friends who knew that the minute they finish graduation, they get married. In college, we had friends who perhaps even got married during college. And I was one of the few who actually went to work the minute the college finished.
Wow.
And continued working. I took breaks when I wanted to on my terms after planning them well. So for me, I think it was a lot of privilege in the sense that I didn't have to battle to work. It was understood I will work. I wanted to work and I continued working almost for 30 plus years. But yes, it is still a bit, disappointing at times when you meet youngsters and they say, ma'am, how do you do it? How will we do it? They are even nervous about wanting to ask their families. So while a lot more women are in the workforce, I think there are a lot more still wanting to come into the workforce, and that's not happening. And women like us have to ensure that happens.
Very true, very true. So let's take a step back. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your siblings, just so that the audience has a perspective of what you just said.
So I'm a Bombay girl in that sense. Very middle class upbringing, no privileges, used public transport. I have an older sister. She's now settled in the US of A for over 30 years. Our parents' focus was always on getting us educated. So, when I started working, also my dad said, I will continue giving you pocket money. He doubled the pocket money from college days for working days. But he said, your money goes into savings because we are from a middle class background and I can't give you a lavish wedding. I can give you a good education and then you save for whatever you want, whether it's a lavish wedding, whether it's further education, whether it's anything. So I think that was a very first important step in kind of not just earning, but also deciding where to spend that earning. And I think hence, literally from my first salary, almost 35 years back, I have been saving every month, continue to do so even now. So that I think was a big differentiator for me as a working woman, where not only are you earning, but you're also owning your money.
It is a true differentiator because when you give money, it gets spent, but education is something that stays with you, it pays off in the long run.
True. Very much.
Jermina, you've led marketing for such huge and well established brands. So, how did your approach evolve as you moved across these businesses?
So, I think there are very basic fundamentals in marketing that do you really understand your category? Do you understand your customer? How are brands currently fulfilling or not fulfilling in the category for the customer's need? And what does your brand do best? So, if you are able to answer these three questions honestly, you will find what your brand can do. and which is why marketing is a very industry agnostic in that sense a science. You can apply the same principles for FMCG, same principles for retail, same principles for tech, automotive. Talk of the category, the principle remains the same. So how you approach it and how you really understand these three pillars and really do a Venn diagram with these three pillars, that's where the marketing magic happens.
Okay. So, how did you get into marketing? Marketing is your forte. You said you're a number cruncher. So, tell us a little bit about it. How did this, marketing actually entice you in the first place?
So I come from a time when India was just starting to get liberalized. When I started my career, when I finished my college, and uh, my college was next to what was then Ogilvy headquarters, and we used to go there consistently to talk to people who had managed accounts for brand sponsorship, especially Chocolate Day, which was our college signature event. And I thought it was a great atmosphere because we didn't have to say sir to any of the people we were dealing with. They were then also very casually and fun dressed. So I said, okay, that seems interesting. Ads were getting to be fascinating. So I wanted to be in advertising, and I pushed my way somehow to get into Lintas. Now, when I got into Lintas, 30 years back, you took the job you went. So I wanted to be in advertising. I wanted to be in Lintas. I got that. I wanted to be managing accounts, but they gave me debit credit accounts. In my own style, I said, okay, let's start with this. I'll find a way to, weave into the accounts I want to actually manage. But in hindsight, it was a very, very good move because managing numbers, I became, no fear of numbers. That's what happened to me. And what I also saw around me, right from the big unit heads who were managing P&Ls, a fear of numbers. And that somehow became an advantage where I realized I loved numbers, I didn't get scared of them, and I used them to my advantage. So marketing is an art and a science. For me, the science comes first. It's important to define where you are now, where you want to be. Art comes in the A to B journey. It is not the journey, So really defining that has helped me, and I think that clarity has helped me be a successful marketer, I would say.
Okay. You're very right because, as such, there is a fear of numbers. And when it comes to women, even more so, and men tend to take control of it. So you
Not that
really
they are good at it.
that's a different thing. But there is a general perception in the society, and you're changing. You're one of the initial people who've pioneered, who've changed that. But how do we change that perception? Because it is so prevalent in our society today.
I think it is about, again, women like you and me talking and sharing quite often our money journey. It's very important to discuss it. Money becomes such a secretive topic that we don't share enough. But I think it's important. And today you have a lot of women led startups which are in women's financial literacy, women's financial advisory. And I think they are doing a damn good job of reaching women. The challenge has been the society mindset where women earn, but they don't even make 10% of the financial investment decisions. Earlier, it was, conditioning or the family deciding, we will decide, the father, the brother, the husband, women were also okay with it. So let's also be very clear that there were women who could have said, no, I will manage it. They didn't choose, right? However few they were, but there were such women. And also, wanting to learn. People always assume, oh, it's scary. Oh, I don't know what to do, how to do the stock market, how to do mutual funds, how to do insurance. It's not rocket science. Only rocket science is rocket science. You read about it, you understand about it, and you realize it's quite basic. So one has to read. And today there is so much knowledge available, so many podcasts available, so many YouTube tutorials. You can educate yourself. You can try out. Don't begin with handling 100% of your money if you're not sure. Take 10%, but take charge. As you own it, as you get responsible, you will realize it's easy to manage money. And as you see it grow, it will give you the confidence that you are making right decisions.
Okay, very well said, because you're not saying take complete charge, 10%, and when you see the returns, it's very reinforcing, and then you're, encouraged to do more. So I really like that. So if somebody is starting out, for them to be financially prudent, what are three essentials?
I think if you're talking from a career point of view, what Warren Buffett says is true. First save and then spend. I learned that in a very different way when we needed a car and we had to pay the loan. And then when the car loan ended, I said, hey, we did very well with half my salary going towards the home loan. And that's when I realized that, it makes sense to perhaps either save that half money or, keep taking loans for bigger decisions in life, but use some financial planning. Because if that money was not given to the bank, I would have probably spent it. So let's be honest about that. Second is also learn to save, like I said, understand which are the saving avenues, how can you really grow your money, and talk to people, read about it. So I think that is also very important. And third, I would also say share the knowledge. Because if you are not talking about it, how do you expect the woman who is working with you, the teams who are working with you to really make that journey? They are waiting for it. They are always looking. Unfortunately, as women, we are always looking for somebody to guide us. So you need to be that guiding light for others when you have finished being guided. I would say that's important.
Okay. As women, we generally tend to be indulgent, right? So we indulge on things, and there's a fine line between spending and feeling good versus actually indulging. So, what is that fine line if, when in doubt, what to do?
First invest, then decide with the balance how much you want to spend.
Is there like a ratio or something?
I would think the ratio has always been around 20 to 30%.
Okay.
So maybe when you're starting up, you probably don't have enough. So 30% is a lot. 10, 15, 20% is good. As your salary grows, increase it. The problem is we increase our indulgences, we don't increase our investments. So, then you're saving a lesser percentage of what you earn. So I would say just do that in a very planned fashion, do it in a very focused and also milestone based. I don't see anything wrong in saying if a girl starts working today and says, I want to save 10 lakhs to buy the jewelry set for my wedding. Great objective. Let's not judge her for that. I would say it's a fantastic objective because you're doing something. Yeah. Second, you want to even go on a holiday. Nothing wrong with it. But don't spend all your money on the holiday. Save for it, plan for it, go for it. And sometimes you can afford a 5-star, but 4-star does an equally good job. So, don't overindulge, I would say. So be very prudent about your spending.
What's the boldest thing that Jermina has done?
I think the boldest thing definitely was stepping into the unknown with my consultancy.
Okay.
In some ways, it wasn't as bold. I had planned it about 2.5 years prior to, when I actually started it. Come COVID, I was in a dead end job. And I said, I have nothing to lose. So in that sense, it wasn't bold. I didn't have any other option. It was the only option. And it took off well. I think the bold part came a year or two later when I could have got back into the workforce, but I enjoyed continuing to be a consultant. And to stay there in spite of it not paying as much then as a job does, that was perhaps the bolder move, when it took off, but it wasn't still financially viable. But yes, it gave me a lot of freedom. It gave me a lot of sense of independence and a huge sense of ownership too. So I would say that was the bolder part.
Okay. So taking life lessons, let's say young women want to start out on their entrepreneurial journey but don't know how to go about it. What should they be doing?
So I think today there are many options. One, they can listen to entrepreneurs like you and get inspired by the journey. Entrepreneurs like you also share failures, which is very important for them to listen and learn from. If you have an idea, start working on the idea. If you are able to put money aside and actually take off, do take off. If can't, do it as a side hustle till you reach a decent point. Also start working with startups, start working with founders. I mean, today there is this chief of staff position, which a lot of founders have. It's great. And you see half the people who work as chief of staff actually taking off 2 or 3 years later as a entrepreneur, which is equally great. So look for those opportunities. Work with founders, work with young teams, and go with the mindset to learn and do everything.
Got it.
I think the younger generation perhaps thinks, oh, we should only do this and we should not do that. And our generation didn't have choices, so we did whatever came our way. And I would say, please take that up, because if you don't take every opportunity that comes, you don't know which one is going to work. Don't be choosy, but keep that focus and also try and put a plan saying, I will work for 2 years, say with an entrepreneur like Aparna, learn, and then put my plan to action. You could also end up being the mentor, which a lot of people would love that.
Likewise. And a startup works out really, really well because in a startup, you're not confined to one role. You're wearing multiple hats.
Absolutely.
So you learn so much along the way.
Absolutely.
In your article, She Commerce, you've mentioned about how women actually start brands that solve problems for themselves. In your opinion, What truly differentiates a woman-led brand from their male counterpart?
So most entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you also did, solve a problem for themselves, and while trying to solve for themselves, they realize there are many people like them, customers like them who do it. The difference is that women, I think, tend to look at things in a very minute fashion. So they get into the nitty gritty. So I see a lot of women-led brands focusing on very different kind of niches. Say acne problem if you're a beauty person. I love talking about women who are doing curly hair products because I can now manage my hair, as you can see. So
I
those
was going
kind
to
of
ask you
products.
about it.
So that's the thing. Second is that as women, we tend to have multiple roles, a lot more roles than a man would have at the same stage of life.
Very true.
We are a wife, we are a mother, we are a daughter, we are a daughter-in-law, we are an aunt, we are a niece. So in all those roles, we see different gaps. And maybe some of those gaps are also being filled by these entrepreneurial women, where they are really seeing up close, and which is where you see them in categories where women are spending more time, be it FMCG, be it beauty, be it fashion and retail like you do, be it the accessories business, and also in tech when they are working, they are looking at solutions which I think are a lot more, say, in life sciences area. We've already seen the women do fantastic in space research in India. So I think women in that sense also are a little more uh, ethical would be the wrong word, but more focused on being right and making choices which work for the world comparatively. Comparatively, there are men also in those spaces. I'm not saying they are not there, but women tend to do a lot more of that, and it comes from our nurture ability.
Well said. Brands today often operate both online and offline. So, what strategies or what approaches do you actually differentiate between the two channels, online and offline?
So I think the reality today is that retail and shopping is hybrid and omni-channel, but the customer is largely digital. So even for Bhartiya Mall, 80% of our spends goes on digital, because while we can't measure like you the clicks to footfalls, we get a good idea. We have our own ways of guesstimating that. In terms of engaging, I think what's important is today there is so much content, and then people tend to do similar stuff. So how do you really create differentiated content is the challenge. And I think we loved working on your store launch, when Shobhitam launched, because we showed many different aspects of the sari, right from weaves of India, where we kind of showcase the various weaves you had, from different types of styling. Because if you want the Gen Zs and millennials, they are not going to wear just our kind of sari.
Very
They are
true.
going to wear it in different styles and do a damn good job of it. So we did this whole reel on different ways of styling reels. And we also did various models. We had a 20-year-old, we had a 30-year-old, we also had a 50-year-old, because everybody wears saris. And today, even advertising is got a lot more age agnostic than it used to be. And we also saw that in the feedback, the way the reels performed, the engagement we got, the kind of queries we kept getting. We could have done a typical bridal route, right? That's something even you've avoided. And that's where the differentiation comes in. There are so many sari brands doing bridal. We didn't stay for that. Of course, sari means bridal, but weaves of India is also bridal. Different styles of India is also bridal. We did a wedding occasion and we stuck from, we went from haldi to cocktails to, the everything, but we didn't do the traditional route. So I think that's where you have to really kind of see how you can differentiate.
Right. And then one event that we did here at the Bhartiya Mall was engage with Rohit Bose, who's a male sari drapist. So he showed different draping styles for men and women using a sari. So that was very interesting. We had very good response there as well. Yeah.
So now that's differentiated, right? You've not done a classic fashion show.
Right.
That also has its place, but this is also has its place.
Right. So we have to just keep getting more and more creative.
Getting more and more creative and adventurous, I would say.
With rapid changes in retail, marketing, tech, how do women actually stay future ready?
I think upskilling has become a must do since COVID. You have to upskill. I understand the challenges for women, especially if somebody is a young working mother, are many different. How do you make time for yourself? So there are many avenues to upskill. One is, of course, doing a course. You may not be able to, choose a course which is convenient for timings, but there are enough courses which have recorded material which you can watch at your convenience. So that's one option. But I think what is even more easily available is information today online. Follow the right people on social media, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. You will get a lot of knowledge on what's happening, what's going to happen, and you start getting future ready. That itself will motivate you to dive deep into topic of your interest and look at a course. So I think upskilling is a must, and it's very important, because if you say I'll wait for my child to grow up and then do it, the technology would have by then become obsolete, and
Right.
you have to choose something a lot more which you probably are not prepared for. So you will have to find ways to do it, and till you can't do it formally, do it informally through these kind of channels, I would say.
Okay, so upskilling to be future ready is the mantra.
Is the mantra. There's no option. I've been doing a course every year. I haven't decided what for 2026, but I know I will do something.
Wow. So just curious, what course did you do last year?
Last year, I actually attempted to do an AI course. The one I signed up for, I couldn't do, but I did 2, 3 other smaller courses, which were easy for me to manage with my time schedule. And more
Wonderful, very
importantly,
inspiring.
applying it. Yeah.
Oh, really?
You have to do it, right?
Right.
We are
Learning is
doing
one thing.
analytics, we are doing creative creation. So we've invested a lot in AI
Oh,
tools.
lovely. Very inspiring to hear. Was there any pivotal moment where you felt like, okay, this is a eureka moment or a life changing moment where you felt like, you're getting that power and, you really want to prove yourself?
So there was this time when, after I started my careers at about 15 years in advertising, first 15 years, I felt I was stagnating. Unlike today, we didn't have coaches, we didn't have people to guide us, and I didn't know what to do. And I am a cost accountant by qualification. I had never done an MBA for whatever reason, and then I felt I need to do an MBA. So I enrolled myself for the executive MBA at IIMB. It was, in fact, their first cohort. And I think that was eye opening for me, because I did it with a lot of trepidation. I had a 10-year-old. I was like, how do I spend the whole weekend on campus for 9 months in a row? Uh, my partner cooperated, my colleagues at work cooperated, and I did it. And it was really eye opening, because suddenly I was seeing a lot more possibilities in the world. Marketing in some ways is a niche, advertising within marketing is a niche. So I was very happy in my corner, and I didn't realize how large the world was. So I think it was very eye opening for me, and I went in saying I will do something else, but the something else became so clear. uh, and the fact that I could actually plan 10 years after doing this course, what I will do over the next 10 years became very interesting. And I was very focused on what next after advertising, which was, of course, pure marketing as a client, as we would call it, but also which industries I wanted to be, where I wanted to be. Retail was just new. We didn't have the first mall also of the country. You had only 3 or 4 big retail companies, but something told me that would grow, and I decided to focus on retail when Bangalore was the tech hub.
Okay, that's very inspiring because you talk about that phase where you had this 10-year-old. Most women, we tend to be self limiting. We restrain ourselves because there's so much going on around us. We feel guilty, right?
Yes.
The guilt really hits us. But you overcame that because that was the right thing to do when long term. And finally, the show is called the Nari Shakti Show, which reflects a woman's strength and power. What does Nari Shakti mean to you, and how did you see that evolve in your own journey?
I think Nari Shakti, while the word may come across as very strong, very aggressive, I think like women, and I would give the parallel of Durga Ma, she has sometimes 8 hands, sometimes 10 hands, sometimes 20 hands. So there are many women like us, some who are overtly aggressive, some who are mildly aggressive, some who are mild. So there are all types of us who make it. What we need to do is have our strength, have our resolve, and have the ability to say yes to what we want to say yes, and no to what we want to say no to. That is the real Shakti. It doesn't matter whether you do it with boxing somebody or sweetly smiling at somebody and doing it. But that to me is real Nari Shakti, where we do what we want and at our terms, and get people around us to kind of, converge and agree to that.
I loved your analogy of 8 arms, 10. Never thought of that, but that's such a beautiful way to, make people
I
resonate
think
with it.
I have been different arms in different stages of my life. I started with being extremely aggressive. I would say now I'm passive aggressive, but I'm also very conceding now than what I was maybe 30 years back.
So I'm sure, everyone who's hearing this is very inspired by your talk.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, for coming
Thank
over,
you, Aparna, for
Jermina.
having me.
Likewise, it was
Always lovely to
wonderful.
chat with
It
you.
was wonderful. What's your favorite Shobhatam sari, if I may?
I have a huge weakness for ikkats, and you do
Okay.
some really good ones with those Kanjivaram borders.
Okay, okay. I really love what you're wearing today. It's a beautiful Prussian blue. My eyes are on that Kasamale. It
Again,
looks so
something
pretty
I
on you.
wanted, and it's a coincidence that I'm wearing it today for the first time. So I'm very happy I wore it for this show.
Thank you, Jermina, for sharing your story with such honesty and depth. What really stood back was that change, evolution is an ongoing process. It's not a one time thing. And that courage and insight can shape not just careers, but lives. So, thank you so much.